Hey everyone, it's me, Bowen, and I got the stupid extemporaneous idea to start a podcast on a Sunday afternoon where I had nothing better to do. And I'm gonna just talk about this week in the Premier League because the Premier League is back and the NFL, college American football, the NHL, and the NBA are soon to be back as well. So I just was like, you know what? I'm going to make a sports based podcast. I'm going to at least try it. And if it goes anywhere, I'll continue it. But I highly doubt that it will. But it's worth a try. Anyway, I just wanted to go through the 9 games that have occurred this weekend in the English Premier League and give you my thoughts on what happened in them. And I'm going to be going over these games in the order in which they were played. Hold up, I just want to make sure my mic is actually working. It feels like it is. Anyway, I am going to be talking about the 9 games, my perspective on it as someone who has followed the Premier League roughly since 2010, but devoutly since like 20. I don't even know. 2023 maybe? I don't know. Yeah, let's say that. I want to just clear a couple of things out of my way first and foremost. My favorite Premier League club is Newcastle. I support them. You can't make me support anyone else. With all of that said, though, I am going to try to be at the very least unbiased on what I say about each game. Or so I can just give my honest opinion. Alright, let's start with Arsenal 3, Coventry 0. And wow. Arsenal are really good. It's a shame my boy Bruno Guimaraes got injured for this game. He's a little bit of a coward by going to Arsenal after all he did for Newcastle, but I'm not going to mention him much because he was injured for this game. But it proved that Arsenal can still hold its own after the big season last year that won their first title in 22 years. Havertz got a good goal. Saka and Odegaard also got good goals. It feels like the team chemistry is still intact. But zooming out for a bit, they played Coventry, one of the teams from the championship last year that got promoted. And Coventry fans online, at least the ones I've seen talk about it, were just like, maybe it would have been better for us to get promoted via playoffs than win the whole thing. Like, dude, A, you played Arsenal, and B, this is the first game in the entire season out of the 380 that would be played this year. And I fully expect Coventry to be the best team from the championship to perform in the Premier League this year. Their next games are against Plymouth away and Hull at home. And I feel like those are perfect bounce back games that will actually measure who they are as a team. I still have a lot of confidence in Frank Lampard as a manager, and I hope they can turn it around. As for Arsenal, their next game is going to be away to Villa. And I think they're going to win that one as well. Even though Villa has their own demons that they're trying to excruciate. But, exercise. Why did I say excruciate? Okay. Moving on. On the 22nd, the first game was Hull 2, Man United 0. Man United. Man. I remember people talking so much about how this would be the beginning of the Man United Renaissance because Carrick had a good run of form for the entire second half of last season. And Carrick would just be like, Man U fans would just be like, we're going to win the treble again. Suck on that, Man City. And then this game happened. And they were just like rescinding all that they said about Carrick. And it just, I don't know, part of me just wants to say that this is, karma for the arrogance their fans showed, but I guess I don't believe that. I guess it was just Hull coming off of an insane high of winning the promotion playoffs after the whole turbulence with Spygate last year. Yeah, fair play to Hull. Semi Ajayi had an incredible goal, and so did Mendy. And Man U can bounce back against Ipswich at Old Trafford. Ipswich, speaking of Ipswich, they beat Sunderland 2-1. And that was a pretty satisfying game to watch. The whole sequence where Enciso took it down the length of the field, passed to Emerson, and he scored. I was incredible. Even as a Newcastle fan, I have to applaud Sunderland and last year having the best season they've had in a while, but I can't help but think that they got really, really lucky at a lot of points last year. And a little bit of that luck came through this game with the the free kick from Nilson Angulo. Nilson Angulo, it hit the crossbar and then bounced in. I'd venture to guess that if someone like Joe Ellington or Eze were to take that same kick, it would bounce back into the penalty area or something like that. But it was really satisfying seeing Jack Clark score against his old team and leave Sunderland with 0 points on the day. That was nice. Ipswich, fair play to you. I have seen so many people say that you were going to finish dead last in the Prem, and I honestly don't blame them, but you did an amazing job, and if you continue against this against Man United, you're going to prove a lot of people wrong. Sure, the next bit of your schedule is a little bit rocky. After a Carabao Cup draw to Leicester, you've got Man U and Liverpool back-to-back, and I honestly would not wish that upon my worst enemy, but hey, if you can get at least 1 point from that 2-game stretch, I feel like you'll be the surprise team of the season. As for the Mackems, is it too early to say that last season was Fugazi? I mean, I have a sample size of 1 game from them, and they've got a whole season left to go. We've all got a whole season left to go, so I'm not going to say anything until at least week 5. They are playing Fulham at the Stadium of Light next week, and Brentford at G-Tech in 2 weeks, so we'll just see what comes from there. Everton versus Crystal Palace. Just kind of standard. Everton got 2 goals from Dewsbury Hall and Barry. Crystal Palace, I feel like Crystal Palace is going to be in a relegation fight this year. They lost a lot of their players, and they're going to be focusing a lot on the Europa League just to say that they won a major trophy in 3 consecutive years. But I feel like this is going to be the equivalent of the Wigan year where they won the FA Cup, were in the Europa League, and got relegated. I just don't really have that big of a feeling that Crystal Palace is going to succeed this year in the league. But whatever. Okay, speaking of last-minute goals, I should have said this after the Ipswich game. Leeds. Anton Stash. What an incredible free kick. That goal was more impressive than Bruno's Olympico last year. And it goes to show that Leeds could be a surprise contender this year. And Forest, I feel like it's also too early to tell on Forest. But yeah, that was the only goal of that game. It was a defensive stalwart for 87 minutes, and I thought it was going to end in a stalemate, but it didn't. So, good on you, Leeds. And Daniel Farke, early manager of the year contestant. Okay. Brentford 3, Tottenham 0. Me and Karma vibe like that. I mean, it's always the Spurs standard to be Spursy. They paid $100 million to us for Sandro Tonali, and Tonali did pretty much nothing this game. The game was over by halftime. Brentford put on an offensive explosion, and I'm honestly really proud of Brentford. I feel like they'll also be a good team this year. They're going to finish in the top half, maybe even get a Europa League spot. They're the only one of the big B teams. Not big, but like the Moneyball B teams. Bournemouth and Brighton have already made it to not get a European spot since their promotion to the Premier League. So maybe this is going to be the year. I mean, Igor Thiago is Igor Thiago even still on Brentford? I don't even know. Yes, he is. He did not get transferred this summer. And Spurs. Maybe I'm just being pessimistic about you because you've only played one game, but like Man United, everyone was going to say that this was the year that they bounced back to being their own old selves. Here, I am not seeing it at all. Of all the teams that lost this week, with the exception of Crystal Palace, Spurs is the one I have the least confidence in. And I think that's it for the Saturday games. Sunday, Brighton 4, Aston Villa 0. What even happened? For an entire half hour, Brighton looked like prime Brazil, and Villa just could not recover at all. Villa had a lot of the same problems that Newcastle had over the offseason, losing quite a few players. But unlike Newcastle, they didn't lose Unai Emery. Unai is still there, and Unai is still proving that he's Unai, hopefully. But once Joao Gomez went out with the red card, I knew the game was over. As a matter of fact, it kind of solidified it. It was pretty much over when Hinchelwood scored his first goal. But Brighton, fair play to you. Good to get those early wins in before the Conference League consumes you whole. Man City Bournemouth, the Antoine Semenyo derby. I know a lot of people online have been saying that Enzo Maresca has been just kind of a bad imitation of Pep since his 3-0 loss to Arsenal in the Community Shield. And I'm just like, this whole thing reminded me of the discussion in the 2022-23 offseason with Liverpool winning the Community Shield with Darwin Nunez, and they were saying that Haaland was just a worse version of Nunez. It's kind of funny to look back in 2026 on that. But, and Maresca kind of proved the haters wrong with this one. But it's fair to say that he took a little bit too much time doing it, right? I mean, Tavernier scored an excellent goal in the first half, but City just could not break through for the first 80-ish minutes until Gehi tied it. And I'm just like, okay, we're here for the first tie of the Premier League season. And then Gvardiol got the goal, and I was just like, well played, City. Well played. I think, if anything, this game proved that City is still the most consistent team in the Big Six. And that's honestly why they're my pick for the Premier League this year. City's next game is going to be against Palace, and it should be an easy win even when going to Selhurst Park. Bournemouth is dealing with Everton at Vitality Stadium next, so that'll be good. Oh goodness. Newcastle 2, Liverpool 2. It could have been a lot worse. And before the game, I was expecting it to be a lot worse. I just was like, okay, Matthias Jeisel's first game as a Premier League manager. He's just doing this to get a feel for the league and hopefully keep us on the pace we need to go on. And then Elanga scored the first goal 5 minutes in, and I was just like, wow. And we didn't crack for the entire first half. No Gordon, no Isak, no Bruno, no Tonali, and no Howe. It feels like we're a completely different team than the one that Howe had, but this one's a lot more slow. And then I started getting really excited, and then Liverpool equalized with Gakpo. And then Willock came on as a super sub. I was both nervous and excited when we scored again, because I was just worried that Liverpool, that entire time, that Liverpool was going to tie it up and we would drop points again like we did so many times last year. And then it didn't happen, and for a while, but I was still holding my breath. And then a full minute and a half after the time was supposed to go off for a final of 2-1, the refs, the VAR, gave Liverpool a penalty for Victor Munoz doing the flop in front of Lewis Hall. Like, Lewis didn't even touch him. So that was a heartbreaker. Szoboszlai got the penalty. And I could be angry about this. I could be angry that the refs just pretty much gave Liverpool the point at the end. I could say that, but I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say, first and foremost, that we kind of exceeded our expectations. I, for the record, thought that Liverpool was going to go into St. James Park and win, and Isak would be a showboat in front of the crowd that it once could home. But, Isak, I'm so glad that he didn't score any goals. That snake missed twice, but while we had the 2-1 lead, and it would have hurt even more if it was him taking the penalty instead of Szoboszlai, but it was still, I don't even know how to feel about the game. I guess on a more positive side, I'm glad that this did not happen. I'm glad this happened now and not 18 months ago in the Carabao Cup final. like in the Carabao Cup final, we were up 2-0 against Liverpool, and we were up 2-1 against them in added time onto added time. And I was just like, and now looking back at it, if they had scored in that added time to the added time, took it to extra time, went to penalties or something there, and won, I probably would have quit watching football forever. So, and honestly, so many different Newcastle fans would have been pretty sad. So, I'm glad we got the win then, and the draw now. Yeisel looks to be a strong manager. Hopefully, we can rebound against Spurs. You've got a Carabao Cup match on Wednesday between that and now, but I feel like the Spurs game will be our measuring stick for the rest of the first half of the season. As for Liverpool, they've got Forest next at Anfield, and that should be a pretty easy win. They should pretty easily make top 4 this year. So I'm not that upset right now, okay? Yeah, I have not seen the Fulham-Chelsea match yet, because that has not occurred yet, but I'm just hoping that's a good game as well. I don't have an outro yet, because this is just the first episode of my podcast, and like I said, I'm not sure if it's going to go anywhere, but whatever. I'm so glad I got to do this, and I look forward to doing this again next week. Bye.